Good afternoon, everybody. Hope y'all enjoyed yourself at this conference. Since the death of his son Trayvon in 2012, due to a violent confrontation with neighborhood watch captain George Zimmerman, Tracy Martin has committed his life to transforming tragedy into change. Not only was Trayvon his son, but his best friend. And as a father, Martin took the life-changing event with difficulty. Yet with heartache came the strength to move forward in a positive direction. Martin is now fighting for such an incident to never happen to another child again. As a result, carrying on the legacy of Trayvon has sparked national conversations about relations in America. Martin's goal is to spread his message for change out to men both young and old across the country. As a role model to fathers from all walks of life, he encourages them to let their sons, daughters, and other youth know that their lives are valuable and that they are loved no matter how they are depicted in society. He also emphasizes the fact that what a person wears does not define who they are as a character, as represented in his son's hoodie. Although his son is gone, Martin hopes his tragic death helps to heal the country, acting as a motivation for parents to keep fighting for the safety of their children. Through his thought-provoking speeches, the insights he offers help audiences foster the necessary conversation to move towards changes that can keep every family protected from violence. In addition, Martin discusses the importance of understanding the proper ways to handle confrontation, providing tools to audience from colleges and legal professionals to community organizations about conflict and resolution. By sharing his powerful stories, he encourages groups to remain educated and continue conversations about civil rights in order to become catalysts for social justice. And now I present to you our keynote speaker, Tracy Martin.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I'd just like to take this time to thank everyone for coming out. I'd like to thank Tracy for inviting me here to share what I consider as my testimony, my story with you guys. It's just a pleasure to be here. And listening to some of the things when the young lady asked the question, what did you learn in this conference? And just listening to some of the thought process of some of the young individuals here, I can't help but to think that the mindset of our young is headed in the right direction. You guys, I feel that you guys have an advantage over our generation with the way technology flows. I just think that the road that you guys are on is definitely better than the road that was paved for my generation. And I'm not afraid to tell my age. I'm 48 years old, 2 years away from a half a century. So I think that at the rate that you guys are going and the rate that technology is changing, that your advantage as African Americans, as seeds of proud parents, you guys, I take my hat off to you guys. Just looking at the crowd, and who would have thought in 2014 that I would have never thought that I would come to a school, university, and I would sit and I would have a dialogue with a room of people that look just like me. And that's not saying that it's impossible, because I never thought that we would see a black president. But although we have a black president, does that give us the measuring stick to say that we've come so far? Or do we look at having a black president and say we still have a long way to go? And I think that we'll see the day, and my to see a woman president. And I look forward to a woman running this country because I had dialogue a bit earlier with some students, and I was explaining to the students and the faculty that I spoke with that although the man is head of the household, we look for that woman figure to spearhead the household. And I think we've come so far as a country that we may see a woman president, a woman run this country in the next few years. And that's not to say that the candidacy that we have for men isn't up to par, but it just says how much involved that women are now today. I look around the room and I'll probably say 75% of the room is made up of women. And that just goes to say that I think that our women are more engaged in our civil lives, in our humanity side. We have men that are engaged in it and they're entrenched in it. But women are just more attentive to situations that pertain to our everyday lives. We as fathers, we as men, as head of the households, we have a tendency of just saying, okay, that's fine and dandy, that's good, okay, we got the bills paid, everything is okay, food is at the table. But who prepares the food? Who makes sure that all of our bills are paid? And it's certainly not in my household, and I can speak for my household, certainly not me. I just don't feel that I don't have the patience to sit down and write bills out. I'll make sure that money is there, but I just don't have the patience to do it. So in retrospect, and speaking about how great women are, I just applaud women, and I'm a big fan of women because I think my first best friend that I ever had was my mother. And I come from a single parent home, and my father was involved in our life, but the majority of my life was with my mother. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. And so I kind of got beat up a lot by my older brothers because I was a baby. And I knew that there were things that I could get away with that put your hand on me, I'm going to go to your mom. So I think at an early age, I learned the importance of women. It outweighed a lot of things in my life because I look at my life. I had my grandmother. I had my grandmother from the other side. My mother was, she had 3 sisters. And so I had all of my aunts. And I had my uncles. And they were like, man, I don't know where to stay with your mom. So, I just felt as though being nurtured by my mother, and she kind of taught me the ropes on life. One thing I like to say is my mother, she showed me a lot of things in life, but one thing she couldn't do, she couldn't teach me how to be a man. So at the end of the day, I had to still stay in constant contact with my father, even though he lived on one part of the continent, I lived on another part of the continent. I still needed him in my life to show me how to become the man that I've become today. And that's not saying that I'm not saying that I'm a perfect being by any stretch of imagination, but I do consider myself as being an upstanding person, an upstanding individual, a God-fearing person. And I think those attributes have kind of sort of pushed me along the way, whereas a lot of people actually look to me as a celebrity. And I rebuke that because I like to keep, I'm a realist. And first and foremost, I'll tell anybody, if if I had to gain celebrity status from the death of my child, I don't need status at all. Because a lot of people view this as a game, as a joke, and I take this to heart. Because we're talking about the loss of a seed that was planted. So we can talk all day about how you feel, and I know what you're going through, but until you have sat in my shoes and you've lost a child, you really don't know. I can explain to you all of my feelings, and I can explain to you all of the hurt, and all of the pain, and all of the suffering. But until you have been down that road, until you have sat on the first pew of the church, and you saw your child elevated in the casket, you really don't know. So that is like one of them. I think that is a piece of life that you can't get back. There's nothing that you can say or do that will never, there's nothing that evolves in this life that can replace the life of a child. We lose our mothers, and we expect to lose our parents. We expect to lose our parents due to illness, due to old age, due to natural causes. Sometimes we lose our children from the fact that they were born sick, they were born with illness. But when you lose your child to senseless gun violence, you're dealing with a different element. So I like telling the story about, I like getting into different variations, different parts of our journey, how we got here. I like to talk about our family, where I am in my life today. And I like talking about what we're doing to take all of this negative energy that has been brewing in this pot, and how we're going to transform it into triumph. So the first thing I like to do is I like to engage in letting you know, because a lot of things where I go, most of the things are we are on Trayvon, right? So I'm trying to and try to plant a seed in you guys' mind, right? So that seed is going to be we are on Trayvon. So we're going to take that seed over the next few minutes. We're going to kind of take that seed. We're going to tend to it. We're going to cultivate it. We're going to watch it blossom into a phenomenal young African American baby. Because this is what it's all about. It's about the future of our children. It's not about Trayvon. Trayvon is nothing we can say or do from February 26, 2012 to this point that's going to bring him back. So what can we do from this point on to start saving the lives of other kids? And it's not about saving just African American kids. It's about saving white kids, Asian kids, Latino kids, Jewish kids. It's about saving our kids as a whole. It's about saving our kids as a future. So I had a conversation with an individual, and he asked me to explain to him who I felt Trayvon was. I said, that's simple. Any parent should be able to describe their child. And it's not trying to place your child on a platform. It's about releasing your feelings into what you have planted, into what you have nurtured, into what you have brought up to be what we consider upstanding citizens of the community. Trayvon was one of those kids where he was hands-on. And he was like many of you. You tell him to do something, he'll do the opposite. That's just our kids. You know, that's just the nature of the beast. So he was more of an outdoorsman. You know, he loved sports. He loved playing basketball, playing football, and as small as he was, for some reason, and for the life of me, I don't understand why he tried to wrestle. Because he was slim. At the time of his death, he probably he had just peaked out about 6 foot. And with his shoes on, he can have on about, y'all know how y'all young brothers do it. Y'all put on y'all jeans, but under them jeans, y'all got about 5 pair of basketball shorts. So with all that on, 5 pair of basketball shorts, about 4 pair of socks. With all of that on, he still only wore maybe about 155 pounds, 156 pounds. So he was slim and good. But that was my baby. So, and I can remember probably about 2 weeks before he was murdered. He came up to me and he was a joking kid. So I was in the kitchen and I was washing dishes and he walked up behind me and he just stood behind me and he was like, he would headbutt in the back of my head. And I said, what you doing? And so he started doing me like this. Catching up to you. He was that type of kid. He loved to joke. He had maybe 3 or 4 strings on his chin. For some reason, he thought he had his grown man. And, I think about those times. I think about it, and it's just funny. I look at him. He would take off his shirt, and he had 2 or 3 strings of hair on his stomach.